welcome to Paper Daisy Journals. It's Kylie. This video is a flip through of a collection of journals. There are 3 and they are very similar. I'm just reaching for the other 2. They are very similar but slightly different. Not different enough for me to do a flip through of each individual journal. So I will just concentrate on flipping through the one journal, but there are 2 others, and they came about because my mum thrifted these really beautiful linen napkins or placemats they may have been, and there was a set of 3, so I decided to use them as the cover of a journal and go with a very neutral theme. So that is what is underneath the decorations on the cover. I've also sewn on 3 little vintage buttons, and there is a little trick to the cover. So I've used some tea dyed silk as the closure. So I'll just open that up and I'll show you that side view and the top view. So lots of things sort of out the top and the side and the bottom. Now the thing about it's nice to have something that's a little bit different, and I probably wanted to be an environmental engineer when I was younger. I did do environmental science at university, but it didn't really amount to anything except a huge university debt. So I do tend to engineer my journals in a way. Yeah, that's the only way I can explain how this has happened. So what I've done is I've sewn this beautiful crocheted sort of star onto a vintage doily, and that opens out. Now these are time worn but laundered items, so there is some wear and tear. So that opens out, and then you can see there was a little I guess rose cut out, so I've got that peeking out the top, and I've used half a crocheted edge doily as a little secret tuck spot, and underneath I have a tea stained die cut heart. There's a lot of explaining to do, bear with me please. I have embroidered a little daisy onto the heart, but you can I guess write around it, but you know, this is something you could maybe name the journal or set an intention for the journal, but I just thought that was really cute slipped into there. And at the bottom here I have the 3 little gold crosses that I've stitched in. So I've also tucked a vintage fabric flower that I purchased from Emily's shop in there. It's not held in any way, so you can take that out if you feel it's too bulky when you're journaling. And it does look pretty. I'll just leave that to the side. It does look pretty without the flower tucked in, but you can see that I have threaded the closure through the crocheted star and the doily. I did my best to bind with a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, but it was there. That's not perfect. Okay, so that's something just to keep in mind. And the back cover also opens out, so you could actually tuck, you know, some I'm just going to grab a whole pile of paper. You could actually tuck some sort of ephemera in the back of the journal as well. I didn't do that because I felt that it was complicated enough to film anyway. And I do apologize for the change in light. We have really random stormy weather that I am going to push through. So it's a very beige day, and I've got a beige journal. So again, matching in always. Okay, so that opens out, and rather than cutting the top of the, I'm going to say placemat off, I folded it over and used it as a tuck spot for the inside cover of the journal. Then I have a printed page from my flower fairy kit. I think I renamed it as, no, it might be Flower Fairy Kit. Sorry, I try and really, I'm not very good at marketing myself at all. Doesn't matter. I'm just explaining where I got the image from, okay? And I've used eyelet, vintage eyelet down the spine, because when I use when I use paper to line a journal, I always leave a 0.5 millimeter or a 1/4 of an inch gap so that you don't get puckering in the paper, and then I cover it with a form of fabric. So that just sort of explains the construction of the journal. This is a tea stained luggage tag, and I have used a tea bag that has been stamped, and I have glued that onto the tag, and I did an upside down bow because that is sitting in the pocket that way, so a little bit different, but just explaining it's intentional. Here I have a French receipt, I think from the 1930s. I've used a Tim Holtz pin and just tied a little bit of tulle to the top there, and that you can take that out. That is a piece of lace that is machine sewn on. So if you take the pin out, it won't fall apart. It's machine sewn on. Everything I make, as I said, is over-engineered. And it will last forever, hopefully. That's the point. An eyelet pocket there. I've just stapled that bow on the top with one of Tim Holtz tiny attaches because it's very subtle on the back. I don't feel that, and probably more subtle than me tying hand stitching it on. This is a French receipt document page, and I have used some tissue paper that I received with an order, and I have just glued that onto a tea stained luggage tag, so very similar to the tea bag, but that is tissue paper, and I've just used some hand dyed silk crepe. I'm not sure. It's not crepe, the pancake. It's the type of wrinkly fabric. Okay, I'm obviously having a beige day myself, so I do apologize for that. So a really beautiful vintage Swiss dot fabric ruffle, and I did a bit of stamping because I just wanted to sort of pull the page together, and felt with this color scheme you do need maybe more layers to add interest because there's no pops of color. At the bottom here I have extended that and pinned a little charm, so that dangles out the bottom, which I think's really cool. I'm starting to sort of extend beyond the edge of my journals a lot more lately. Hopefully that's still in frame. Here I have a larger tea stained die cut heart, and I've left these blank because you can add most definitely some buttons and little pieces of lace like onto the edge if you wish. And I've tucked that in there. I also got from Mum when she did her little thrifting expedition, matching doilies. So I've torn them in half, and I've used both sides as little tuck spots in the journal as well. This is a printable, I think, and Grungy Antiques Set 2, and I've used Grungy Antiques Set 1 for pages and ephemera in the journal. And this looks, because this is a slim journal, it looks really beautiful double-sided and then folded over, because it creates that sort of collaged look with folding it over into a tuck spot. I've used some beautiful, very delicate antique lace along the edge there, and this is one of the pieces of ephemera from the kit, blank on the back, and I used some gold, some of that glitter kiss from, I think it's Creative Expressions. I've also torn, inked and glittered the edge. There's 3 of these decorated pages in the journal from the printable kits, and I have done a very similar thing to each one. That's a little piece from this doily, and I've stitched that to the top of some music paper and flipped it over and on the other side I've added a little layer of lace, so it's one sort of tab but 2 parts, and I thought that was really fun. This is a book page plate, a floral plate from a book page. I must be hungry because I sound like I'm talking about food, but I mean like a image. Anyway, there's no going back because we're very likely to get some thunder and lightning anytime soon. So it's a race against nature today, and I'm talking about nature. There is a very light nature theme throughout the journals as well, and I have backed that with a ledger so you can write on that and put a ruffle there. I'm really loving this page with all the layers. Little piece of French ephemera at the bottom, just, you know, to add some interest, and a decorated Tim Holtz paper clip. And on this side, this is a image from a Victorian album book page, and it's a tag. On the back also some ledger so you can still write on it, and that just tucks in there. A little element at the top for interest. This is another printed page with a piece of ephemera, a little bit of glitter on that one, not very noticeable. I get glitter everywhere, it's all over my fingers, so it's kind of funny. And this is some of that really cool German paper measuring tape. I am starting to use that just to sort of add another layer. In the other 2 journals there is a piece of antique ledger, torn piece across here, but in this one I just decided to do it differently. I'm not sure why. So and that's some beautiful vintage lace there at the bottom. Tea stained page that opens out, and this is actually a little tuck spot, so you can tuck a little tag in there like that, which is actually really cute. I may actually do that if I can find my little tags, so it may look like that if you do purchase one. I've used a really gorgeous glass button there that I pin on with a little safety pin, and that is Braille paper. I actually used some of the tissue paper as a ruffle. I thought I would give that a little go. There are some other journal makers and artists that are doing the same thing, and I just thought it gives a little crunch and a little detail, and I've put some washi tape at the back there because that sort of turns that page from a tea stain page into a slightly less boring one. Pocket here, and some beautiful handmade paper that I've embossed with a nature themed folder, and that has writing space on the back. And I've glued that on in this journal, but I think in one of the journals I sewed it on, and I forgot to flip the edge around in the other 2 journals. But I do really like that because it sort of takes the decoration from that page across to the next. Another pocket here with a piece of ephemera postcard, and I've just stitched a little snippet of lace at the top there. You can go over the back with ink if you want a grungy look to the back of the postcard. This is the center. I have a wax seal here at the bottom, a camellia design. And on this postcard, this is Rebecca Warren. She was a stunning actress, I think in the 1920s. And that is in the Grungy Antiques Set 2. So here on the edge, I've just used a large vintage looking brad to add a snippet of lace and some tulle just to the corner there for a little interest. And just a handy hint with brads, when you push them through, if you lie them flat on your table and push down on a ruler and really flatten out those two wings there, it's not very chunky. So if you push down and flatten them out, you need to do it with a ruler because your finger isn't firm enough. It actually doesn't interfere with journaling on the page. So you can sort of, I mean, you've obviously got the little bubble part of the brad, but that's just a handy hint. And here I've used a piece of printable and some original French receipt, and I've stitched that on as a tuck spot on this side and a tuck spot on that side, so it sort of folds over the page. You can just stick, you know, a piece of sort of torn and inked paper, but I thought that sort of adds some usefulness to that decoration. Another piece of ephemera from one of the kits with a snippet of the lace, some embroidery magazine, and I've added a beautiful piece of Heather's gorgeous handmade paper, and it has a gold and silver sparkle through it. So that can be turned into a pocket or used as a card. You can use ballpoint pen, but not fountain pen on handmade paper. I think gel pen works well as well. A sort of rustic bow I've stapled on there to keep it simple. A snippet of lace to make a tuck spot, and as you probably know, I have a love-hate relationship with tuck spots, but I really love this one because it's not perfect, and I like how the lace sort of holds the tag in, but that's some handmade paper, and I've backed it with some ledger and just tucked that in there. And you can sort of see, the layers. I'm just loving the layers. I do always have a lot of layers in my journals, but there's certain spots that you fall in love with more than the rest of the journal. That's another glass button. It is a matte colour, and I've just pinned that on, obviously, as there's another one of the Tim Holtz numbers, just for something fun, and a page from an Edith Holden book that I've torn out. You can fussy cut the flowers if you wish, or journal on it. I just tucked that in there. This is an Edith Holden book page I've turned into a tag, and what I've done, because I know the tag's going to be upside down in that lace pocket, I added a charm so it would dangle downwards, which I thought was really fun, with sort of the tag topper. So that's something to, another creative idea. Here this is another page that I love, because I've got that little tab at the top, the layered tab. This is the tea stain doily. I've just pinned that on so you can actually take that off and collage with it. There's some of that French receipt there, and this antique lace frame is going to be in my ledger and lace kit number 2, which I keep pretending to work on because I get other ideas and I just go in a different direction, but that will be coming soon. And I've put some tracing paper, I've sewn that to the back of the little cutout part, and there's a Will's cigarette card that I have stuck on the back there, so you can still journal on it. So it's a little window card. I keep intending on doing them, and I think, oh, they just look so complicated. It took me 2 minutes. It took me 2 minutes. I feel a little ashamed at being so dramatic. But I just love the look, so I would definitely be using more of my frames. I have some in butterfly kits. So yeah, I'm loving the idea of actually doing it. And the back of this sort of page is just as pretty as the front. And I have another just, you know, lightly embellished postcard from the kit with some of that gorgeous lace. I have just stuck that on, so, you know, it's probably best not to rip it off unless you want to do that. It shouldn't come off on its own, but just letting you know. In the other 2 kits, this is arranged a little bit differently. So this tag that's in this smaller pocket here is actually tucked in sideways to here. But in this kit, I made the pocket too small to stick this in. So this would in the other 2 journals is just tucked in there. So you still get the same ephemera, but just in a slightly different way. And this is a little envelope made out of a book page. You can stick something fun in there. And that's the other side of that doily. And here I have one of my watercolor floral cards. I've inked the edge and backed it onto vintage paper. And when I've torn the image off the page, the printed page, and I've also, when I stuck it to the back of the vintage paper, I just left like a millimeter. I'm not sure how small that is in inches, but a very, very small edge just to create a little layered framed look. So that's how I've achieved that. And here is a tiny bulldog clip with a really old pearl bead, and I kind of like the sound of that. So I've just stuck that up there. Of course you can move ephemera all around in a journal, but I just love that as a tactile sort of element. And then you've got the washi tape there with the ruffle at the back. And I've done that because if you don't love resizing all your pages, I find it very tedious. I try and sort of get it within 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 centimeter, so they're not all perfectly in line. But if you're concerned that some are maybe going to stick out more than others, I suggest, which you might notice I do in my journals, putting a ruffle on one of the first pages and a ruffle facing the back, because then you can't see the uneven pages. It kind of covers any pages that are sticking out a little bit. So that's just a handy hint if you're not fond of resizing all of your pages perfectly. And here I have I think it's Victoria Flower Album page turned into a tag, and I just ink the edge and stick the ledger on the back, and then I tear off a piece of, for my topper, I tear off a piece of ledger. Sometimes I ink it, sometimes I don't. I punch a hole through, and I use they're just office eyelets. They're just these sort of self-adhesive labels. You can get paper ones that you can ink and change the colour of, but I've run out of them, so I'm just using the plastic ones now. But that's just how I do the tag topper for something a bit fun at the top. That's a little snippet I've just added to the other side of the French receipt, and at the back here I have used a little brad, as I suggested, like pushing down on it with a ruler to flatten it completely. And that is a little pansy that was off the edge of a doily. I snipped all of the pansies off. There were orange ones and purple ones all around the edge, and I've just used that as a little decorative element there at the back of the journal. It does stick out of the edge. If you're not fond of that colour, orange is probably my least favourite, you can easily take that off. But it does match in with the colour scheme. In the back here, and also the image as well with the little daisy. The back here I've added a couple of things to use in your journal. There's one of my collaged and laminated tags. That's ledger from 1700s. So immortalised in laminate, which should last 1,000 years. This is a book page from the Victoria Flower album, but this one was the diary that I think came out in the 60s. And I've just included a page of that in each of the journals. And this is from a French almanac, which is a diary, and it has the moon phases and all the things that farmers use them, and that's from 1902. So that I've just put in because it has some really cool elements to collage with, and I just thought that they looked really great layered in that back tuck spot there. So that is that journal. As I said, the other ones are same but slightly different. And now I'm going to close the journal with my very interesting closure system. I could actually call it a system because it does have moving parts and there's more than one. And this just tucks in fairly easily to the front of the journal. I'm just going to stick it in that way, but you can sort of weave it in. And it should stay on its own. You can also cut that off with some jewelry pliers if you wish, like if you don't like to have it hanging down that low, or you can actually sort of weave it up underneath itself. So yeah, so lots of different ways of using a very normal looking journal. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for putting up with the weird lighting. And I think we've just managed to get the video done before the boom crash. Okay, see you in my next video. Bye.